What up, you guys? I hope you're doing well. This is Monday. We are here for our weekly anchor message where we receive our spiritual lessons and themes for the week ahead. I am really feeling our reading. This week has an eclipse. And let's see, is it a new moon eclipse or is it full? Where are we at? Oh, okay. So we have a full moon total eclipse this week on Thursday, and it is in Virgo. That really ties into the themes of this reading because it is all about the dark feminine flipping the script and turning the current energy on its head, causing the upset. Now, there have been many prophetic thoughts that it will be the divine feminine that rises up in these times and relieves us from this patriarchal system. And I think that people don't have a depth of understanding about the patriarchy. I think when people hear that, and especially when men hear that, they think when they hear down with the patriarchy, they reduce it to thinking down with men. And that's not the case. The patriarchy is a system in place that has been built upon exploitation, dominance, violence, lust, and greed, and it seeks to exploit those who are less powerful. Whereas the matriarchy is a system of more tribal, communal type values where people are living in equity, justice, community, systems of support, right? And it just really emphasizes equality and cooperation and unity. The matriarchy puts their focus on healing problems rather than gaining for the self. So that's what we're talking about. So if you find you're a person that thinks that patriarchy is synonymous with militant feminism, it's not the same. This is about systematic, I was going to say leadership, but it's not real leadership. It is oppression and it is exploitation. And it's been the system of authority that we've been under for thousands of years. But before that, before agriculture grew and there were kingdoms and things built around and governments built around agricultural societies where people had, what they thought of as their own possessions and their property was their own. It was communal. It was ours. It was, doing things in a sustainable way, right? Maybe you've heard about regenerative farming, which is going to be something that's a growing trend. And regenerative farming is just returning to the traditional way of farming, where you have, different kinds of crops and you rotate them and you farm in such a way that nourishes the ground and the soil rather than completely depletes it. So, having said that, I want to pause here because I thought it was really important to show you guys the layout of the spread of cards because they're not an individualized idea today, like where we normally go through each card and it's kind of got its own building meaning. This is a collective statement that the cards are making as a group. So I'm going to have the picture. And I've recorded me reading you guys today's post, which I felt was a very powerful channel that I almost didn't do because I had woken up late. This weekend was my manager's birthday, and so there were festivities happening. Yesterday I'd been out, most of the day celebrating, and then we'd kind of been out after work Saturday. So I was really tired this morning and I slept in a little late and I almost didn't have time to do the post before work. But I was like, you know what? This is important, and something is coming through and it needs to be said. And so I went ahead and did that, and it was the only thing I had time to do before work. And as it turned out, like I was like, man, if we have to spin the wheel to see who's cut today, like I kind of hope I get a cut. And I did. So I was like, oh, so glad. So I read this to you. So you'll hear that in the voice note that I'm cutting into this video, and you will see that, see the picture of the spread over the video, or over the voice recording. So I'm going to pause here. That's going to be spliced in, and then we'll come back and talk more. This week we address the establishment's historical inability to see beyond black and white. The patriarchal system has only ever been able to contextualize women as either the Madonna, the virgin, or the whore. This is the lie of animalistic lust and fear of the divine feminine aspect of God. Women have been given the power to bring forth life and creation. We hold the secrets of the universe in our essence. This is why men are burdened with more acts of religious devotions and mitzvah than women. Weak men are terrified of the Siren, the Mother and the Crone. The establishment seeks to infantilize, subjugate, silence, and control this power. They seek to manipulate and indoctrinate the maiden. Be pretty, be nice, be sweet, be quiet, serve me, fuck me, honor me, nurture me, advocate for me, fight for me, intercede in prayer for me, make me feel better about myself, and prop me up, because without you, I waste away in my own lust, filth, and skid marks. The patriarchy versus the matriarchy is not about men versus women. It's about a system of enslavement, oppression, dominance, inequality, and injustice versus a system of cooperation, equality, sustainability, justice, and community. So many wonderful men are wide awake and fighting alongside women, young women, little girls, and baby girls. Baby girls who will quickly grow up to protect our rights and our freedom. Jesus advocated for women. He encouraged them to be independent of their family if they had to follow them. He believed in the intelligence and strength and power of women and their sacredness. In fact, the Jewish faith honors the women, the feminine, in the highest regard. The misogynistic attitude towards women will only be overcome when men take ownership of themselves and master their animalistic instincts of lust and violence. A man who seeks to take is in his wounded feminine. A man who seeks to share, protect, and serve is in his healthy masculine. The dark feminine is rising. This is the force that will break down corruption and eliminate the threat to our children and the lives of our neighbors and the well-being of our planet. Rest assured, this is not solely a human battle. Nature is feminine, and the patriarchy has sought to exploit Mother Nature and her children long enough. Mother Earth will punish her aggressors. The planets and stars and asteroids will punish her aggressors. And after the sheep have been sorted from these despicable goats, God's wrath will punish her aggressors. We fight for women because women fight for everything and everyone under the sun, God's son, and we will never be forsaken. Okay, so we have the Siren. We have the maiden, and we have the animal. Underneath the Siren, we've got the moon. Underneath the maiden, we have the Hierophant. Underneath animal, we have Knight of Wands. And then to end it all and tie it all together, we have 7 of Wands. So, just taking you guys through like the Siren here. So we've got the moon card, which is our full moon in Virgo at the end of the week. It is a total eclipse, or is it a total eclipse? Well, it's our first eclipse. Oh, it says total eclipse, and it's our first eclipse during eclipse season for the spring. And so then we'll have our new moon eclipse and another full moon eclipse after that. But this is in Virgo, the Virgin, right? And so it's like the divine feminine, like the Virgin coming forth and drawing upon her dark power to speak truth that is jolting and shakes the foundation of what we currently know. Eclipse season breaks down systems that are not sustainable, and it cleans the things that are toxic and destructive out of our environment. So this eclipse is really exposing, I think, particularly the sinister attitude towards women. And it is no coincidence that we just had National Women's Day, which people were posting about all weekend, and there wasn't media coverage. But if you go looking through TikTok, you go looking through threads, you can see people's videos posted of all kinds of women's marches and gatherings, not only here in America, but in Canada. They marched for American women's rights, and they held an 8-minute moment of silence, absolute silence. You could hear a pin drop in that city. The women of France gathered in Paris to march topless, and it created a huge controversy, and people were appalled. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's okay to be topless at the beach, and it's okay to be topless when it turns you on, or when we're feeding a child, or actually that was always controversial too. Whenever breasts are exposed in any way that's not for sexual pleasure, it's like a big upset. So I thought that was incredibly powerful that they marched bearing their breasts. Like, oh, what was that hero? The Greek hero woman who bore her breast as she was taken down. And she was like fighting for something, I can't remember. Maybe Google the Greek heroine who died with her breast bared. So yes, what's happening right now is so many men are wonderful, and they are sensitive and caring, and they're not threatened by women, and they love women, and they honor women. They know that women are their grandmothers and their sisters and their aunts and their nieces and their daughters and their best friends. Their sisters, if I didn't say that, right? These are their wives. They honor and cherish women and their rights, and they believe in them, and they believe in them and fight for them and advocate for them, even if it doesn't serve them or give them anything. I saw a Black gospel pastor doing an incredibly powerful sermon in defense of women. Really kicking the establishment's ass about expecting women to take care of everyone else and pray for everyone else, and nurture and support and work their ass to the bone, and taking their tax money, taking their tithing, but keep the opinions to yourself, right? So he was like, and then he was like, women fight and advocate for everyone else and everybody. And yet he said when it's time to advocate for them, it's silence of the lambs. And he said, and that's even in church. And so I thought it's just, you got to see the clip. It was very powerful, very moving, but people are realizing, oh, this isn't just about feminists, being loud and inconvenient. This is very serious, because I think it was just this week I've been hearing bits and pieces about a story of a 10-year-old girl, and she is such an archetype right now. And I feel so bad for this little girl to have to go through this, but this is like it's like she was born for this moment and that thing to happen to her. When we talk about your tikkun and understanding that, like, no matter what is happening to you, There is something that you can use. It can be used for a purpose. It can be used to reveal light. And so every one of us know that when we come down to earth, when we have certain tragedies and things that are going to happen to us, as a free soul, before we come and incarnate, we agree to that thing that happens, even though we don't remember it when we get here. So this little girl was raped and impregnated, and they're going to court about whether or not she can get an abortion, and or maybe the parents took her across state lines because in her state she couldn't get a legal abortion, and so they had to go across state lines. I don't know the details around the story. I need to find out more about it, but just keeping that as an example in your mind, abortion rights are not just so people can go out and live wildly, right? People aren't really like that. Like maybe like a small handful of people aren't thinking, and making clear decisions, but not one person wants to go get an abortion. That's not like their lifestyle, okay? So, there are horrible circumstances that call for an abortion. There are devastating circumstances that call for abortions. There are incredibly unfair situations that call for abortions, like in this case of this poor 10-year-old girl. There are cases, I just watched a video of a woman who was making it a point to honor women who have died because of pregnancy complications in states where they could not get an abortion. And so this woman who was in the hospital, she was pregnant, married, had 2 children, was pregnant with a child that she wanted with all her heart, but there were complications and blood clots forming. And this was very, very, very early in the pregnancy. It was like first trimester. It was like it was like before it would have been too late to get, it wasn't like a later partial birth abortion. It was like an early phase of the pregnancy. And there were all these blood clots and blood tissues starting to gather, and she started bleeding, and no one would treat her for this issue she was having. In the hospital, they gave her like basic things to like what they do when you get in there before they decide to do anything. They're just like, here's a drip and here's this and whatever. But like they were just leaving her untreated, and they wouldn't do the procedure that she needed because of the legalities, because the physician could be prosecuted. So basically this woman was left to die. She bled to death with her husband at her side, and nobody treated her. Nobody gave her medical help. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are right-wing people who don't want women to be able to work or to vote. There was just, in one state, they signed a bill that would make it so hard for women who were married that took their husband's name to vote, because they would have to show up in person. If your last name didn't match the name on your birth certificate or whatever, you would have to take your birth certificate, take all these proofs of identification, and vote in person. So of course that eliminates anyone who doesn't have those documents available, who's housebound, who doesn't have transportation, people in rural areas that don't have transportation. It just, it's voter suppression, but it's targeted, and it always is. It's many times targeted against young people and BIPOC people. But this particular bill is targeted directly at women because the far right is scared to death of women. They're scared to death of free thought and of our empathy because they know that their tyrannical, unfair, backwards, exploitive system is on the way out. And so these are the final death cries. So the misogynistic masculine is terrified of the siren. The siren represents that dark feminine, the mysterious dark feminine who has that seductive power over them. They're terrified of the feminine sexual power that has over them. So they're violent towards it, and they're hateful towards it. So they seek to subjugate and and keep it in line, right? They're trying to infantilize women by teaching them that they need to be stay-at-home trad wives, right? Why go get an education when a man should be providing for you? But what that is a trap to get stuck in a marriage that you can't get out of because you have no job skills and no money and no independence. I can't tell you as a server in a restaurant how many women of a certain age will look at their husbands and ask them, what do I like to drink? How do I like my steak cooked? What do I want to eat? And I want to flip a table when I see that happening, because I'm like, woman, don't you know your own taste buds? Can't you choose for yourself? Why are you looking for this motherfucker to tell you what to order, what you like, how to get it done? You're the one who's eating it. It pisses me off so much. And trust me, I've never considered myself like a super feminist or whatever, like not in that militant way. I have never considered myself against men in any way. Most of my closest friends in life have been men, and I love men. I love being around them. I'm, attracted to them, love their company, love their humor. But these are systematic issues. This is not pointing the blame or like gender war by any means, but this is something that needs to be illuminated, because every man who's comfortable and secure in themselves is not offended by this situation, but they jump in and get really into it and defend women and side with women on this. So I think that this eclipse is really bringing all of this to the surface. I mean, remember the Me Too movement when Rose McGowan was the first one to come out and name her rapist, and everyone turned against her and canceled her, basically told her that she was a slut and a bitch and to shut up. Every woman that speaks up for themselves, hey, please stop raping me. Hey, shut up, bitch. Go be, like you were asking for it. You shouldn't have been outside of your house alone. It's insane. So we are not dealing with this anymore. The earth cannot go any further like this. This is also a system of exploitation of the earth and the feminine earth, and doing things in such an unsustainable way that we are killing our planet and our wildlife, and we are killing any future for our children. We're already killing it with the fact that our education system has lost all funding, and they're going to start doing these vouchers. It's like, and then, oh, well, I guess if you can't afford a voucher, then you'll homeschool. And it's like, oh my God, how many people have the ability to just quit their work and homeschool their kids? How many people are like smart enough to give their children an entire education? I'm not prepared to like teach a child like from kindergarten through 12th grade, curriculum. So this is systematic oppression that's going to turn us into a third world country. Parts of this country are already at third world conditions. And I think that people are going to start figuring this out. There's 2 special elections that are happening in Florida that are very, very, very vital, that could tip the balance in Congress a little bit if these 2 Democrats win. But they're starting to win over more of the rural Republicans, because the rural people are losing their hospitals. Their hospitals are not being funded. They're losing all, like they don't have transportation, they don't have hospitals, so they're being like basically forced into these third world conditions. And they're realizing now what's happening, that it's the Democratic Party that wants to be able to make sure that they're taken care of. At least their basic needs get met, right? It's countries where you have no education, no instability in the realm of like finances and food and clean water. It's these factors. When you don't have medicine, when you don't have food, you don't have water, you don't have education, that's how you radicalize people into violent zealousness. And that is exactly the strategy that the extremists use to recruit their cohorts. They go after rural people who aren't educated, who are desperate, and they are angry, and they are powerless, and they give them guns, and they tell them, hey, go oppress these people, go domineer this group that's weaker than you. And then that gives them the sense of power and an illusion of respect that they have been missing. So all of this is very, very, very necessary, very uncomfortable, very messy. But the dark feminine is, so if the feminine brings forth life into the world, that is also the bringer of death. And the supernal feminine is the dark, infertile mother who brings, is the gate of life and death in this world. And so there's two sides. The light feminine is nurturing, life-giving, but the dark feminine is the angry mother bear. The dark feminine will eliminate threats to the young. The dark feminine will eliminate perversion and toxicity and poison and danger, and will break down that which is not supporting the functionality of the unity of the whole. So dark feminine is rising here. The siren is calling. And men are terrified, not all men, but weak men are terrified of the siren, the mother, and the crone, because this is the temptress that they lose their control over. And then they resent themselves for losing their control to their own lusts. This is the mother who is the protector and the life giver, and the person who they want to be paired with, but that mother can say, you know what, no, I don't need you. I can take care of myself. I have my children. I have my, I can fend for myself, and you are no longer needed in the situation if you're not making the situation better. So they fear the mother who's going to protect and who's young enough to be strong and fight. And then they fear the crone because the crone is wise to their bullshit. The crone has the experience. The crone has the foresight and the depth and the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom that they can share to the mothers and the sirens who have the strength and the capability to fight the system. So then we have the maiden here with the Hierophant. And in this case, this is like the systematic infantilization of the maiden. The indoctrination of women and girls to be told from a very young age, look this way, be quiet, be submissive, let someone else take care of you, don't be empowered to learn on your own. I know, I was in a family of a misogynistic father who tried to control and dominate me and domineer me and infantilize me. And he even had a moment of, his facade cracked one time. And he owned up to that. Volunteered on his own. I did not get that out of him. He said that. He said, we tried to control you, and we tried to keep you down. So this is not me just popping off, which I am, I'm feeling all kinds of popping off right now. They don't call me Tell It Like It Is, Liz, for nothing. Okay. I'm feeling pretty fiery. Aries. So Aries, Mars is getting activated. So this is the system here, the establishment. That is what the Hierophant often represents. And so it's like the maiden is at risk right now. Do you see the way this looks like a womb here? It looks like the feminine reproductive system, and it is being attacked and trying to be dominated and owned and enslaved by the system. And so right now we are fighting for the maiden, and we are fighting to protect the maiden and fighting to protect these little girls. What kind of world are they going to be growing up into? I don't understand these men who have voted in this way that have daughters. Like, I just don't understand it. I can't wrap my mind around it. There is a darkness that has taken over so many people that it is so strong. It is absolute evil and demonic. And we have to break through this darkness. We have to get through to these people. How we do that is layered. And it's going to take a lot of creativity and a lot of resilience and a lot of determination. I personally have been joining in on boycotting the corporations. There's, if you go to... There's this man, the People's Union. I think his name is John Schwartz. The one they call Shy, I think is, I am the one they call Shy. But you can find him on, just look up the People's Union. You'll figure out how to get to his social media. But he has all kinds of boycotts planned for the year, and he keeps like sharing his calendars. Right now, we are not buying anything from Amazon for between the 7th and the 14th. Last month, we did the entire, there was the economic blackout for one day where we didn't spend money on corporate America. People are starting to cancel Target altogether and just say, I can do without Target, I won't go back. So, you do what you can, and do what you feel led to do. But the only way, like, you can't reason with these people who are lost completely to their greed and lust for power. They don't care if you help them understand what the Bible means better. They don't care. They know what it means. They're doing it on purpose. They don't care. They don't value these morals or these ethics. They are moralists. They are ethicless. So the only thing that you can do to get through to these people is speak their own language, which is affect their bottom line. Take their money away, take their power away, take their assets away. So I keep bringing up the fact that like everybody keeps talking about selling their Tesla car, but the Tesla car has already been bought. So the only thing that you can do is stop buying Tesla and liquidate your Tesla shares. If you have any Tesla stock, then sell it, right? Cause his stock value to go down, like ruin his company. Right? If he doesn't have any wealth and he's lost his company and he's lost his ability to start up any new, if he's completely ruined, then there you go, right? So the economic boycotts were actually the deciding factor in the civil rights movement of the southeastern United States in the 1960s. It was the Montgomery boycott that finally brought the end of segregation. All the marches and everything, those were impactful and like historical, cultural phenom that made a difference, and they made an impact, and they spread the awareness, and they changed people's minds. But what changes policy were the fact that the marches were the excitement and the Vanity Fair that drew the attention that led up to an act of civil disobedience. The march wasn't the only thing that happened. The march was just step one. Step one, introduction, march, make a big fuss, and then do an act of civil disobedience to make a point, hopefully taking that situation to court and then the Supreme Court. So that was the strategy here. So the marches are great, but in addition to the marches, what we have to do is use our dollars to undermine their power and their influence. So systematic oppression of women, we're addressing this. It's coming to an end. That's why we have the 7 of Wands here. 7 of Wands is standing up for what you believe in, setting boundaries, fighting for what's yours, right? And the 7 of Wands also encourages that you have the ability to handle the challenge and persevere through the challenge. This is breaking through, see how he's breaking through these bars? He's pushing through the current limitations, right? Current restrictions, current oppressions. So we are fighting for women's rights. We're fighting for the rights of the future women in this country, the little girls, because now this isn't just a war on women. This is a war on the fact that little girls could be abused and raped and impregnated, and they have no out. I never thought I'd see the day that we were looking at such darkness and malicious ignorance the way that it is today. And then we have the animal here with the Knight of Wands. So there's 2 layers here of meaning. We've got the animal on its own. It talks about our the instincts of our flesh, right? The feeling of being caged in, right? The animal wants to run free, right? When an animal is caged in, they start to feel defensive. They start to feel like they're on the attack, right? When you see a scared animal that's like being pinned in, It's pretty scary because that animal could turn on you and lash out, right? And so this Knight of Wands in this deck, it points out that this woman here is, she's courageous and she's taking bold leaps, right? And so this to me is saying like women will jump through hoops to help one another and to save one another from being trapped in these situations that threatens their well-being and their freedom and their liberty. They are not going to be caged and they are not going to be put into life-threatening situations. They will do anything to stop this. You can lift a car off a baby if you need to when you're pushed into that situation. There is also a second meaning here, where the animal is, they are kind of a slave to their desire, right? When the animal wants to eat, it wants to eat. When the animal wants to shit, it wants to shit. When the animal wants to sleep, it wants to sleep. It's like, I want, I take. I want, I take. It doesn't necessarily give anything. So this is like the animal lust that has caused men to have this so the Knight of Wands can have a, like it can be related to the father wound, and it can have that can cause like the wound of being non-committal or unreliable or undependable when you can't stick with it, right? So this is that, I don't know, when like the wound of men right now, the wounded masculine that is acting out in these adolescent ways that's not a mature, healthy man. And they're following their lusts for sex and dominance and power and greed and money and credits and credibility at the sake of their human consciousness. They're completely resigning themselves to their animal instincts right now. And again, I want to say not all men, but this attitude coming out of the far right, the Christian national, I keep calling them white Christian nationalists because God help me if I see any BIPOC people that are joining the Christian nationalists. This is the thing about white supremacy, and that's where it stems from. And the white supremacists, like these, who else am I including in the neo-Nazis, like all of this far right fundamentalism, the Christian fundamentalists, all of this, it's like, this is who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all the amazing men out there, or even the men that are just kind of like not even that amazing, but just also not shit either, right? So, but there's a serious wounded masculine issue in this country right now. I can't tell you how many men that I know that are my age, I'm 41, about to be 42, who are absolutely adolescent, who sit and avoid any kind of commitment or responsibility, and they waste away on video games, not giving any of their heart, soul, or genius, or energy, or strength to the world, not looking to see if they can help anyone or do anything beyond just what's on the sports. I'm gonna play Nintendo now and then just go about my mediocre life. And I hope I'm not bothered by a woman who wants commitment or kids. So this is my generation, the generation that just sort of fell through the cracks. These younger men coming up now and growing up, I'm very, very impressed by. The Gen Zers and the younger millennials, they're very emotionally intelligent. They want to get married. They're not afraid of commitment. They love women and they're sensitive, but they're also strong, and they learn how to do things. Like I'm really impressed by the younger men that are growing up now. And I'm fortunate to have many in my life, not just in my family, but I work with some really, really, really nice guys. So I have a lot of love and a lot of affection for men. And I have to keep saying that because it's true. I don't have anything against men, and I always want men in my life. But there are men out there that have been wounded by a lack of an emotionally intelligent father. And so they've been wounded by either having a domineering emotionally unintelligent, emotionally unavailable father, or a completely absent father. And so they haven't been taught, what a healthy masculine man looks like. And so when a man is in his wounded feminine, that presents as the selfish taker. I want to take. You look at, feminine energy is about receiving. Masculine energy is about giving. So in extremes, we want a little bit of a balance of both, right? And so the wounded feminine energy is a woman who's completely docile, who wants to take, can't take care of herself, is too passive and just lets herself be domineered. Or the woman who doesn't want to give is completely selfish and it's just about taking. Whereas that toxic masculine is the extreme end, where it's like overpowering, domineering. I want to own you as my property. I want to tell you what to do. I want to tell everybody else what to do. And I want to own and conquer and, divide and conquer. And so think about it. The wounded masculine and the wounded feminine usually end up together because it's the passive woman who that domineering attitude goes after. They're not trying, a toxic masculine is not going to want to try to go out with me. Okay. This is not going to happen. Right. So now we have this weird thing happening in our society right now where I think that the major, ways that that straight couples are clashing is because that cisgendered people are in the opposite energy, in the wounded spectrum of the opposite energy. So all these women who are like, I can't get a man to chase me, I can't get him to commit. It's like they're in the masculine and they're doing all the work and they're chasing after these men and they're trying to make an effort, but it's not happening because the electrical currents aren't functioning properly. Whereas the cisgendered man in his wounded feminine is going to be looking to be a taker, right? I want your sex. I want you to build me up and make me feel good. And I'm going to, text you and send you messages so that you'll flirt with me back and I'll feel good about myself. And that's all that's going to come of it. And then I'll ignore you. And then I'll come back when I'm hungry again and I want to take from you. The wounded feminine man wants the woman to pursue him and make him feel important. The wounded feminine man is the kind of man that goes to a date and asks a woman what she's bringing to the table. And if a man asks you that on a date, I would say get up right that second, throw your napkin in his face, walk out the door with no explanation. Because this man wants you to pay half of his bills at least, if not more. He's always going to be taking from you. He's never going to honor you, and you're going to live in a sexless relationship with intimacy anorexia. So yes, the man in his wounded feminine seeks to take, he victimizes himself. He's not a helper. He's not a sharer. He's not that man that goes out and tries to protect and serve. He's the kind of man that wants to take and wants everything easy and is lazy and passive. A passive man is a healthy woman's worst nightmare. That will leave you feeling so depleted and so drained. If you settle for a passive man, you are going to feel like his angry single mother. And your boob will start hurting. If you have breast pain, mark my words, there's probably nothing wrong with you. You are probably overgiving. And your boobs are telling you that you are being sucked dry. I noticed this pattern in me every time I was in a situation where in my life, in my relationship, I was overgiving, or at work I was overgiving. My boobs would tell me the truth. They would be my barometers. They'd say, hey, you need to scale it back, and you need to stop working yourself to death, and you need to stop overgiving to these people because they are not reciprocating. And whenever I would pull back and be more independent and not give so much, mysteriously, pain goes away. I had a friend recently who was experiencing breast pain. She was really worried about it. And I know her to be the overgiver in her relationship. And she is a loving, sensitive, awesome, badass bitch. And she's a Cancer sign, right? So she's obviously going to be the nurturer and the giver. And she was having all this breast pain, and I was like, you know what? I have confidence that you're perfectly safe, but I do have I'm absolutely sure that you're overgiving. And I told her about the thing with the boobs, and she's not like a woo-woo, but I think she was like, there's something to that. I think I could see it, like a light went off in her head. So I know that this reading has not been our usual like personal journey kind of story, and I know they've been more political than I usually am recently. I'm not really that political of a person. It's just that we've been overtaken by a violent right-wing regime. So, you know, it's kind of the most important moment in the human history at this point in time and in this country. We are at a pivotal juncture. And the whole world, I mean, the entire planet is watching and in agreement. And if you're like thinking that it's like, you know, what's the big deal? You know, it's just business as usual. Then like open your eyes up and do some searching to see what kind of stuff is going on around the world right now, because everyone in the world is watching the United States. Everyone in the world is grieving for the United States, and other countries in the world are promising that they will not let the true American people, not the right-wing nutcases, but the true American people, they will not let us down. So we have allies, right? But it is ultimately up to us to clean up our own mess and address the issues at hand. So I would be irresponsible and I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't use this platform to speak out about what's happening right now. And you know what, if we go around doing only the work on ourselves, then we're just like the people who go to the mountain, you know, and never come back down, right? You go to the mountain in stages, but you have to come back. The reason you go to the mountain is so that you can prepare yourself for the service that you bring when you come back to the village. Right? The meditator on the mountain, the Buddhist on the mountain, even Jesus would go into the mountains and into desolate places to tune back in and plug back into God and restore his strength and hear his spirit speaking to him and through him. But he came back. You know, he didn't just disappear into isolation to work on himself. And we can't either. We cannot afford that right now. The world needs us. And even if it is an act of sacrifice just to start educating yourself and paying attention to what's happening and encourage, you know, you don't have to get out there and start your own, you know, platform and do all this. But if you can, I'm sure that there are people who have been bullied into that crowd around you that you can work on. I know I've already gotten through to my mom. I think she wasn't exposed. She didn't understand all of the extra stuff. She didn't know about the far right and agenda. She was just a product of a time where domineering men told them what to do. And my dad still treats her like it's like he owns her and he's going to tell her who to vote for. And it's not that sometimes she's voted independently, but he used fear-mongering and evangelicalism to twist her understanding of the situation, and she was manipulated. But now she sees clearly, and she's heard my words very clearly, and she knows. So we can get through, at least to our mothers, probably to our mothers. They understand, right? They understand, especially when it comes to women's health and men domineering them. They grew up in a time where they went through this and it was a lot more extreme. Remind your mothers of when they couldn't get a credit card or a bank account by themselves. And it wasn't that long ago. And it was only in the 1990s that spousal rape was considered a crime. So if we revert back to that time, I remember growing up, and my dad would say prejudiced things against Middle Eastern men because, like, me and my mom were always attracted to Middle Eastern men. And he would say, they treat their women like dogs. They abuse their women. They don't let them go to school. They don't let them read and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, great. Now you've sided with the exact same extremists in this country, except they're lily white. All right. So wake up, because if you judge someone, you will walk a mile in their shoes. And if you answer extremism with extremism, then you become the enemy that you were against. So I know I'm saucy and sassafras tonight and I'm on fire, but that is just the way of it. It's that coming eclipse. I'm feeling buck. I'm feeling as buck as fuck. All right, y'all. Well, hopefully we'll have a funner message tomorrow. We'll be back for our weekly manifestation oracle message, where we will be checking in with our goals. But until then, peace be with you and down with the establishment. Ciao.